Hello viewers, welcome to Beyond the Shift Talk Show. I am your host, Grace Wanjohi. Today we'll talk about a concept known as the wounded healer. Remember, this is a talk show for people in helping professions. These are the fields of medicine, psychology, social work, mental health, and even the pastoral field. So this concept of the wounded healer is accredited to Carl Jung. He was a Swiss psychologist. According to Carl Jung, all people experience trauma or a wounding experience. Not all the wounded enter the helping professions, but those who do bring their wounding experience, and it can help them deepen their empathy with their patients or the clients. As much as this concept is used by psychologists, it is also applicable to the field of medicine and mental health. What are these wounds that Carl Jung is talking about? This could be childhood trauma. This could be addiction. This could be a physical illness that you have overcome. This could be a disaster that you witnessed. If you have survived some of those experiences, you are the person whom we are calling a wounded healer. We are going to see how this wounding experience is beneficial to the patient. And I want to talk about 3 analogies that bring out the concept of the wounded healer. One is a Jewish story that is told by a writer known as Henry Nouwen. This writer says that in one of those Jewish traditions, there is a rabbi who comes to Prophet Elijah and asks him, when will the Messiah come? And the prophet Elijah tells him, go and ask him yourself. So the rabbi asked, where shall I find the Messiah? And Prophet Elijah says, the Messiah is at the city gate, sitting with other wounded people. And the rabbi asked, how will I differentiate him from the other wounded? The prophet says, all those people who are there, they have wounds, but the Messiah is opening his wounds one wound at a time, while the rest of the people sitting with him are opening their wounds all at once. So why is the Messiah opening one wound at a time? It is because he knows that he may be called upon to go and heal another person. So he cannot open all his wounds at once. He opens one at a time so that when he's called upon, he's going to bandage that wound and run to where he's needed. The others who are not wounded healers have all the time to open their wounds and bandage their wounds. In that same story, it is told of when Jesus lost his cousin, John the Baptist. He withdrew to a solitary place so that he could go and mourn his cousin. But when the people realized where he had gone, they followed him. And so when they followed him, the Bible says he had compassion on them. Remember, he had gone there to mourn his cousin. But when he sees the crowd, he has compassion on them. He forgets his own grief and has compassion on the multitude. After teaching them, when the time came for lunch, he told the disciples, go and feed these people. So the disciples are wondering, how do we feed all these people? And that is the story of feeding the 5,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves, and even had leftovers. So what does this story teach us? That Jesus is wounded, but as much as he's wounded, he's still concerned with other people. He's not concentrating on his wound. His wounding experience does not remove compassion from him. It makes him even more compassionate, because like this time when the multitude went to him, he's grieving the loss of a loved one, but he forgets his pain. He has compassion on the people, he teaches them and even feeds them. So that is one of the stories that explains who a wounded healer is. The second one is based on Greek mythology, where there is a character who is named Chiron, who was a hunter, and he was wounded by a poisoned arrow. And he got an incurable wound. No matter what he did, that wound never healed. As he looked for healing for his wound, he discovered how to heal other people. And so he became a great healer. But his wound never healed. It remained incurable until his death. He did not take his wound as something that would stop him from serving others or ministering to others. So that tells us that we can be wounded healers. Your wounds cannot stop you from being available and helping other people. The third story is about a culture in China, about a people who are called shamans. In this story, it is told that some people are picked from the society to become healers, and for them to become healers, they are taken through an experience. They are wounded and they become sick and delirious to a point of death. But this is done so that they can enter the spiritual world and come back with healing. So they make sure these people don't die, but they are so wounded that they are almost dying. So when they come back, they believe that they come back with secrets from the spiritual world and they are able to minister healing to other people. These stories show us who a wounded healer is. A wounded healer is someone who has undergone a wounding experience, but they don't stay in the wound. They grow out of that wound. According to Carl Jung, he used to say that wounds are transformative. They transform you. They transform pain into purpose. So this can be applied to the psychology field. You may have gone through an experience that was traumatic, but out of being able to get out of that experience, you can use that to create deep empathy with your patients and be able to help them. The same in the field of medicine and the same in the field of mental health. It has been shown that people who have struggled with addiction and were able to get out become very helpful to others who are in that place. So this concept of the wounded healer is used in Alcoholic Anonymous circles because this person went so deep and so far. They know everything about substance use disorders. They know everything about alcoholism, and so they are able to come back with an experience. Using their own wounding experience, they are able to help another person. But as much as we can be wounded healers, we need to be self-aware so that by helping our clients, we are addressing their wounds and not our own wounds. We need to remember that we are still the helper. Do not over-identify with your wounds. Just use that experience to relate to the person by creating deep empathy and being able to help that person. You also need to set boundaries so that this person does not now become hooked to you. Just because you had that wounding experience, they are not able to transition. They will be coming back to you every time. What did you do to do this? How did you get out of this? For those in the psychology field, the concept of the wounded healer, you have to remember that you have to attend personal therapy so that you don't lose objectivity of the counseling relationship, therapeutic relationship with your patient or with your clients. Because if you lose this, then the client will start seeing you as a superhero. If you're counseling a young person, they start looking at you as if you were their mother or their father. And this can also trigger countertransference, which now you start looking at the client as a significant other, as a son, as a brother, and in this way lose the objectivity of the field. For this therapeutic relationship to work, where you are using the wounded healer concept, there are things that we say help the helper. This is the psychologist, this is the doctor, the healthcare worker. These are optimism. Having been wounded, be adaptive, be open to change. Today I'm okay, tomorrow I may be wounded, I'll bounce back and go back to my role as a helper. Being open to learning, do not just be stuck in one area or do not think that you know everything. Always yearn to learn so that in this way you are building resilience, having that cognitive flexibility that things can change and you need to change with things as they change. That is resilience. And this resilience will help you to bounce back and will help you to use that, your wounding experience, as a stepping stone in helping your client. Another way a wounded healer can build resilience is through altruism, being kind and selfless. This one usually helps the person that you're helping to feel like all is not lost and that there is hope. Another thing is facing fears. You cannot help another person through their fears if you are not able to face your fear yourself. Another thing is through social connection. We'll keep on emphasizing this because it is said that, especially for psychologists, social connection is very important. If you are socially connected, you are modeling to your client that connection, and so you're able to help them out of their problems. Another thing is the moral compass. Is what you are doing right? This one will guide you in building your resilience and being able even to model for the client and make sure that you are doing things right. You are not just coming here and saying, I had a similar experience, this is what you need to do. So there should always be a moral compass. Is what I'm doing to the client right? That is the way in which wounded healers can build resilience and model this resilience to their clients so that they can be able to bounce back and probably in future also become wounded healers. So what are the advantages of using the wounded healer concept in the helping profession field? 1, authenticity. Wounds are not escaped, but wounds are processed, and out of that there is psychological growth. Another advantage is empathy and connection. Because you have walked a similar path, you are able to relate that experience to that of your patient or the client, and in that way you deepen the empathy and connection. It also helps people in helping profession in gaining insight into the client's pain or into the client's journey. Because you have been through that, you have more insight. In fact, you might be able to help more if you have walked a similar path with the client. You'll have more experience or more knowledge than your colleagues who have not been into that journey of wounding experience. And finally, those who have overcome addiction can be able to use this concept of the wounded healer to model to others who are struggling in that area. So what are the disadvantages of using the wounded healer concept? 1 is burnout and vicarious trauma. If you're going to keep on citing your wounding experience and over helping, over identifying with people with similar challenges, you can easily get burnouts and you can get trauma related to your work. That is what vicarious trauma is. Secondary traumatization. You can be traumatized a second time. The second disadvantage is countertransference. This is where you project your feelings towards the client. The problem with this is that the counseling session loses objectivity. Or if it is a therapeutic relationship in the field of medicine, you lose objectivity because now the person you are treating is no longer a patient or a client. You are treating your child, you're treating your sister, you're treating your parent. And finally, there is need for self-care so that you don't become over-involved. So those are the disadvantages of using the wounded healer concept or model. So after listening to this story, do you think you are a wounded healer? Do you think you can use your experience to help another person struggling in the area that you have already overcome? Would you be willing to share your experience or use your experience, the wounding experience, to be able to help a client in the field where you are working? Please get back to me through WhatsApp number and also through the Gmail and let me hear your experience. If you'd like to come and share on an interview openly, you are encouraged to write a short story about your experience, and then you'll be invited to come and share. Your experience can help someone who is out there. I thank you for continuing to watch my channel, to subscribe, like, and comment. Get other people in the helping professions to do the same so that we can grow as a community. So until the next talk show, I've been your host, Grace Wanjohi. Thank you and bye-bye.